All right, welcome.
Cool.
Is that a good intro?
Yeah.
All
right.
Maybe you're listening for the first time. Maybe you're on a long episode binge, the kind of vibe where you listen to 35 fucking episodes of the same podcast in a row.
Imagine listening to our voices for that long.
If I didn't know us, I might.
I couldn't listen to my own voice that long. I'd listen to anybody else's though.
Yeah. It's kind of nice. It's kind of nice having a podcast. It's like the feeling I wanted to have when I used to try to make vlogs when I was in high school.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if the audience knows this about me, but I was an avid, aspiring YouTuber in 2013 and 14. My channel's still up. The videos are all still up.
I've watched some of them.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty embarrassing, but...
They're not bad.
Why scrub the internet of that type of thing when it was just who... I was being my true self at the time.
There you go.
Which was awkward. But this feels so much better than that because it feels so much more authentic and real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which actually reminds me, we have a guest today.
We do.
Yeah, and I'm gonna give them a call right now on Facebook. Probably should have done that before I started the recording. But fuck it, calling right now.
Very excited.
Can you hear okay? Blah 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 blah. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Frankie.
Hi. How's it going?
I'm Brian.
And I'm
This
Theo.
is Theo. I don't think we've met before in person, right? Am I crazy, or have any of us met?
Hello.
Oh, can you hear me? Hello.
I can hear you. Hello.
Hey, can you hear me? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Good.
I think we have a little bit of lag going on.
I don't think. Yeah, I can hear you. So.
Oh, I think we might have a bit of a lag.
Cool. Do you want to call me back?
Fuck.
That could be a good idea.
Fuck it. Okay, I'll try calling back. Hold on, my bad. What the fuck? Facebook is
don't fail
fucking
us
with
now.
me. You motherfucker. This is the shittiest intro to a podcast ever.
It might be because I'm in the city. Should we go to the...
Dude, we always record in the city, right?
We're in the city.
We're in the city.
Should I go
That's
to,
right. There's a bunch of buildings.
Yeah.
Let
me,
Yeah, just hop off on
Let's get us outta
Sturo. Get on Sturo. Good old Sturo Drive. Good old Soldiers Field Drive. Which is maybe Sturo, maybe it isn't, but it connects to Sturo. We suck. I'm just kidding. We don't suck. We gotta do positive self-talk. I'm gonna try again.
Yeah.
If this is just too horrible, then I'll just fucking start the recording over.
That was a good intro so far.
Hello.
We're doing okay.
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Nothing. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
That's better.
Okay, I think that the speed might be a little bit better.
Yay.
How's it going? We're recording right now also, just as an FYI.
Okay, cool. I won't say anything incriminating.
Great. Shit, how's it going? What's up? As I was saying, I don't think we have met. Have I met you in person, or am I crazy?
Maybe. I don't know. I tend to just Facebook friends. I follow pretty much anyone who seems to be a local artist on social media. So, yeah, and when you see people's social media accounts so much, it's hard to tell who you've met and who you haven't.
That's true. I don't know that we've met in person, but that's kind of exciting because you will be the first artist that we've interviewed that we haven't met in person yet. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, so it works.
But yeah, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit and talk a little bit about what kind of stuff you do?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Frankie Symonds, and I grew up in Boston. I now live in Salem. I started off mostly making film and video you know, a lot of like experimental non-narrative stuff, but then I got more into making like narrative stuff and also like experimental non-fiction. I mean, I'm also like a painter and like, yeah, I do all sorts of shit, honestly, but it all kind of stemmed from making films. I was like a film and video student at Mass Art. I graduated in 2011. Yeah, and I'm really also into like not like a lot of my stuff that I make is really personal and kind of autobiographical, but I'm also in the last few years getting more and more into sort of doing creative nonfiction about other artists. Which first I had, when I lived in Somerville, I did a public access TV show called Queer Cats, which was part like autobiographical thing and then part like art, like profiling queer people, and then each episode featured a segment of a queer person and their cat, and that was like fun, but it wasn't really just my own name didn't necessarily have. I mean, I wasn't really able to give anybody a platform. And then late last year, I became like an editor at large for the arts and culture section of the Boston Hassle, and I've been writing a lot of like kind of like part artist feature, part on like digital exhibit, because I try to feature like 15 to 20 images by artists I write about. But yeah, so I do all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'd love to hear you talk about the experimental nonfiction. Is that like, how does that manifest for you, I guess? Like, what does that look like? Like would the Queer Cats be an example of that?
Yeah, I mean that was more of like a hybrid leaning toward like the more like, I mean, there was definitely so each episode would feature like an opening segment with me, and a lot of them were very like autobiographical, but I would just say most of like my film and video work is just sort of like observational essays rather than say having like actors perform, or like, you know, a lot of the scenes are actually just like me filming my immediate surroundings and the people in my life, and also, you know, kind of using different like essay film techniques of, you know, voiceovers and, you know, all that sort of thing, and just kind of, but not necessarily, you know, playing around with the form of you know, movies, so that it's not necessarily following like an obvious documentary narrative.
That makes sense, like putting sort of a more editorial lens and like a documentarian kind of visual.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's a lot like when I studied at Mass Art. I mean, when I was in high school and I decided that I wanted to be a filmmaker, I thought I would just end up like directing, you know, narrative. Like I thought I wanted to be like David Lynch or something, and then
Sure.
oriented and aware, because, a lot of even more artsy and creative movies tend to, unlike other art forms, it's usually marketed as an entertainment product as opposed to, like, art. Whereas, like, it's perfectly reasonable for people to, like, oh, you see a painting, and, like, if people don't find a painting entertaining, like, let's say if it's like Mark Rothko and it's like a big maroon square, it's like no one's necessarily entertained by that, but it's accepted as like a high art thing to challenge the viewer, whereas in most film is kind of thought of primarily as a commodified entertainment. So I really am trying to make stuff that, like, pushes those expectations, I guess.
Yeah, I read I think it was a Compass write-up that by Olivia Deng. I'm not sure when it was from, but I know that, I don't know if it was you or a creative partner of yours or a collaborator of yours talked about how a lot of the times when you watch a movie or a TV show, the polished, like, beautiful way that it's presented kind of makes you, it like demands your attention in a way, while you two are more interested in the kind of distortion and grain. And does that have anything to do with, like, the actual material art element of video making versus, like, this?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I would say I'm not at all interested in like suspension of disbelief, as they like call it in film school, of like making the viewer forget they're watching a movie and they just get immersed in this reality.
Right.
Like I'm not really interested in that at all. Like I always, I want there to be this like awkwardness so that you never forget you're having a mediated experience.
Right, because that's really interesting, because it can almost be kind of manipulative, or kind of almost like you're like propagating by creating suspension of disbelief, versus like when you're experiencing something that visceral where you're like hyper aware that you're experiencing a piece of art. It's like you, the piece of art, and the creator are present.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go. No, you can go.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, and it's like, when we're looking at a painting or a sculpture, a lot of the times you don't like forget that you're looking at a painting. Like, you know that it's a fucking painting.
Yeah, I feel like I'm glad I ended up going to an art school to study film. Like, I'm actually I applied to NYU, and not that they don't have experimental film professors there, because I know that they do, but like they also have a lot of narrative focused like screenwriting stuff. Whereas like my first teacher like made a 16 millimeter film that she like rotted in her own menstrual blood, and that was my first film teacher. And like, so I'm really glad that I was exposed to such alternative methods of making movies, because you think like, oh, like people think of painting and sculpture and performance art as like you can do anything, but I mean you don't think of like, people, I think nowadays when people think of movies, they think of something you can like get on Netflix or something, but you're not necessarily, you're not going to find certain types of challenging experiences in terms of the actual medium. I mean, narrative and content-wise, sure, you'll find very difficult stuff, but actually, like, in terms of the actual medium of film and video and, like, pushing those limits, like, visually, like, I'm really more into that. And also, in terms of the kind of musicality of it, I'm more interested in, I would say, like a poetic or a musical approach
That's interesting. Oh, go ahead, Theo.
Oh, I was just going to say, that's a really interesting lens. I was going to ask you, actually, of course, the project that I've seen the most of, since you've been posting about it on Facebook a little bit, is the Incontinence project. And I assume that falls into the same kind of category of thought when you're working on that. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Definitely. So, my roommate, Tyler Hallett, who works under the name Content Breaks, he's a video artist who his primary mode of working is like making music videos for musical artists, and I've always had this thing in my head where I'm like, I have to be in a band. I don't know, I guess it's just my gayness or something. Like, oh, I have to be in a band and I have to sing, but I don't want it to be necessarily like I want it to be musical, but I still want it to like be difficult in the same ways that I like other stuff I make to be. And Tyler and I had been talking for years about collaborating on some sort of project, and then it just work, and I'm sure the both of you know about, you will plan on having a collaboration, but when you work and you don't live near someone, those things always fall to the side. And so last year, I ended up, I've been living with the same person for several years, and we ended up separating, and I was like, I need roommates. And I was planning on staying in the Boston area because that's where I was working. But then Tyler and his wife they got married since then, but she was his fiance at the time. They were like, we're moving to Salem. Do you want to look with us? And I was like, yes. And then so that was very, I really like living out here. And so then we just started being like, hey, we have been talking about doing some sort of thing for years. You want to just do that? And then, we both are really interested in appropriating imagery. I shoot a lot of my own stuff, but I also use a lot of I just use other footage, whether it's from famous movies or old cartoons I used to watch, or any friggin' whatever I can rip off of YouTube or get my hands on. And he does a lot of stuff like that too. And I've been playing the theremin for a few years. I mostly got into doing that to make soundtracks for movies. So the Incontinence project came together with us just fucking around with a theremin and a synthesizer, and then just sort of we decided it was going to be a band that would specifically be as much a visual project as it was a musical project. And so there's always going to be some sort of added media element. We've released 3 singles, and they all had music videos that kind of I don't really think of them as separate entities. And now we're working on this new project where every Tuesday we're making recordings, and we're eventually going to, once we have several of them, we're going to release these one-of-a-kind collage tape recordings.
Oh, that's really cool. Collage tape recordings.
Interesting. Now, I'd really love to hear more about that too, but one quick question I have before we move on too is, could you talk a little bit about how you guys collaborate, in the sense that these, despite them, having this really beautiful and interesting tape aesthetic, they are created digitally. Now, are you guys sitting together and like doing this like in a kind of like tactile way at the same computer, or is there a type of exchange in the process of how you guys edit or piece these together?
So all three of them, they were edited digitally, but then they were put onto a VHS tape and then redigitized. So they are, you could say the final copy is VHS, which is then put back onto digital, but it is edited digitally, and then we put it onto VHS to just give it that look. And then each one so far has been done differently. Like the first song we did, which was a cover of Kiss the Girl from The Little Mermaid, Tyler edited that whole video. And then the second one, I Beg for Your Forgiveness, I edited that whole video. And then the third one, I laid out a cut, and then I gave it to him to finish it. And when it comes to the actual musical tracks, I mean, we both record them together.
Very cool. So it's like straight down the middle, like 50-50 collaboration as far as editing goes then.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's really neat. That's awesome. Have you noticed that project is like, we've talked about this, like Brian and I have done some collaborative projects before. We've talked about how this sort of third entity emerges when you're doing a lot of collaborations with the same person, of like you have your own artwork and then a second artist has their own style, and then there's this third thing that you kind of create together. Have you experienced that it feels like very different than the things that you normally make, or is it kind of a good blend because you have all of that hands-on work with it?
I mean, it definitely ends up being things that I don't think either of us would have made on our own. So that's, I mean, and you can see both of us in it, but yeah, I mean, the collaboration definitely like leads to, you know, like a sort of individual thing that wouldn't have happened. Yeah. So, I mean, I definitely feel like as connected to the work as I do to stuff I make on my own. But, you know, I guess the connection I feel is, you know, more sort of like, has to do more with like, yeah, it feels different because it's not 100% my like personal vision, you know, it's like a shared thing, you know.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I think collaborating can be so cool in that way too, because when I'm just on my own making the things that it's only my input, I can tend to get like kind of Theo says it often, yellow wallpapery about the project. I don't know what that reference means, but I know what it means viscerally anyway. But like I can get kind of crazy, but when I'm collaborating with somebody, it's really cool because you have to respect their wishes and the things that they want and their input. So it kind of forces these like really interesting parameters where it's kind of almost like you can do this, but only if you follow X, Y, Z. And it can kind of spark such a different creative channel in my brain. Because like I was learning about neural pathways in the brain for a little while, about how like, you know, we program these neural pathways in our heads with the things that we do and the ways that we react to a lot of the things in our lives. And eventually those paths become really well trodden. Mm-hmm. So you pick the one that is most well walked. The most common reaction you have is the one, it self-perpetuates. It makes you have it even more. And I think that happens with my art a lot, where I end up doing the same, you know, I don't know. But other people can really, really dig you out of that in a really beautiful way. Because you guys actually, Frankie, you said you two live together as well. So that also must kind of influence the way you guys make art too, because like do you guys have the same workspace as well?
Yeah, well, when we collect, so we have a bedroom apartment, and what's supposed to be the master bedroom is our shared studio space, and all three of us are artists in, and my other roommate, Tyler's wife, Tina, is a collagist and makes like assemblages, and then Tyler and I haven't been doing much painting on canvas since I moved here. Like when I had a studio in Charlestown, right on the border of Somerville, when I was still in that area, and I was doing a lot of painting, and I just haven't really made the space here to do that. So I would say like Tyler works in that studio a lot. I do watercolors and drawings lately, but like one thing I've really been focused on in the last year in terms of like my personal sort of non-video art is making 3D printed objects, but using a 3D pen. So it's like I'm making them by hand.
Oh yeah, I've seen those online. They literally are aren't they like a pen that's like almost like discharging filament?
That's exact. So it uses the exact same filament that a 3D printer uses.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So it's it's making like plastic objects essentially.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I'm really into making those type, and I usually don't. I think the largest one I've made has been maybe like 14 inches tall. So it's like, you're just doing a little eeny beeny bit at a time. So you're not, the idea of making some huge thing would take a real long time. So but a lot of those I just I like to just sit on the couch and get stoned and be around my cats when I'm making stuff. So, but when we collaborate, we use the same workspace, but I kind of have my painting stuff in there, and I haven't really been doing that type of painting in this year.
That's pretty cool though about the pen, because that sort of blends, what kind of things are you making with that? Because what I'm picturing right now is just a sort of combination of drawing and fiber arts almost. My vision in my brain is you knitting something with a 3D pen.
more just straight up sculptures. And also I have made several I collect Pez dispensers, and I made a bunch of Pez dispensers where I just take a Pez dispenser and go over the head with that. But a lot of the stuff is just sort of sculptures you can plop on your table or something.
That's awesome.
They're all over my Instagram and stuff.
I think now that you mention it, I have seen a few of the Pez dispensers in the last couple of weeks.
I've also made a few scepters.
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't know. I like a lot of the paintings and sculptures I do are kind of based on childhood fantasies and visions I have had, and I was really obsessed as a child with just scepters and staffs and any type of just long I don't know thing. I just thought I would be some sort of witch or warlock sort of, not in a Harry Potter way, because I mean Harry Potter wasn't popular till I was already a teenager. I was born in 88, so for me, I mean, there was definitely a much more classical sort of vision of mystical things. And so I was very into, I've never been the type of, like, my transness definitely manifests itself in very sort of handsome women. Not necessarily masculine, but like Beatrice Arthur, who played like Dorothy in The Golden Girls, and that type of thing. Just like sort of like witchy women. I don't know. I always felt very connected to that, not like sexy women. I don't know how I went. I'm just sort of stoned, so I don't know how I went where I just went. But
Okay.
No, it's amazing.
Happy 420, by the way.
thank
it's
you,
420.
you too.
Holiday episode. No,
Yeah.
that makes sense. That's really cool.
Now, do you think, you know what I thought of immediately? Maybe it's totally fine if you don't think about it like this at all, but like, I noticed too that like, you talked about how with your video work, in almost the sculptural, visceral way, you guys are subverting this like polished and like beautiful way. Like, you know, I keep saying beautiful in like a conventional way of, the way this kind of like dogma in which we believe that films and TV are supposed to be, you know, and a lot of people usually describe that type of thinking as plastic. And I think it's kind of interesting that another medium you're working with is literally plastic, which is usually meant to describe things that are perfect and conventional, but you're making these interesting, free-formed sculptures.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like, I know it's like, I feel odd because it's like bad for the environment and everything, but I actually like love plastic. I love like precious materials. You know, I mean, they're all well and good, but it's like, I don't know. It's just like growing up, I loved, especially action figures and toys, and just, I loved shit like that, and I still do. You know, I still sort of compulsively collect toys to the point of like having financial struggles because I was so compulsive. And yeah, and so for me, it's like I like the 3D pen because you can make your own little plastic things, but because it's like all coming out, it's like hot plastic coming out of this pen, it just has this really sort of rough quality to it that I really like, that even no matter how refined you can make it, I mean, you'd have to sand it for it to really, and yeah, I don't know, I just like this sort of meltiness of it.
Yeah, that is so cool. That I've never even, I feel like I share that experience with my childhood, where now that I'm thinking about it, I think every sentimental object I had as a little kid was probably 99% of the time a little piece of plastic, like a little plastic guy, or a little, you know what I mean, G.I. Joes and Star Wars toys. They were all plastic. And I think that's interesting too, because we put so much emphasis on two things in the art world, among, you know, many, which is precious materials and permanent materials.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what's really interesting about plastic too is that it's this like bastard child material that we all hate, and it's also one of the most permanent fucking materials ever. So I've never found a way to manifest this, but I've always thought that plastic, there should be more plastic art. Because it would last fucking forever.
Yeah.
and the way we, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like people complain if you don't rinse your like bottle well enough to be recycled, which makes, I don't know, but like I don't know. I feel like there could be like I don't know. I feel like if I don't know. I have no answer.
No, it's totally okay. I mean, I definitely don't have any like environmental criticism of plastic art, really. I think it's a really interesting thing to do.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I wish there was some sort of way that I could turn the world's Aquafina bottles into, like, filament or something.
That would be cool as shit, yeah.
Melt it all down somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be fucking interesting?
And make, like, I don't know,
You know what?
a giant
Just fucking...
Scooby-Doo.
Wasn't there a person who made a floating raft and turned it into a house out of used soda bottles, like in 2008 or something? Got to win a Guinness World Record about it, I think.
Probably.
I vaguely remember that in the part of my
That
brain
sounds
that used
sick.
to read Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Now, you know what? I'm noticing another theme that you also talked about, Frankie, which is toys. Do you find that these toys that you collect are ones that you loved in growing up? Like, how in what ways do those inform the art that you're making now? Video or sculptural, painting, otherwise.
I definitely have toys. Like, I definitely rebought toys that I had as a child just to, like, have a version of them back. But I've also, like, gotten into a lot of, like, I didn't really give a shit about Pez dispensers as a child, but
Right.
I don't know, I really like this idea of, I don't know, first of all, I just think it's, like, really weird that you're, like, literally, like, yanking hunks of candy out of, like, the throat of some, like, little, I don't know, and
That is really weird.
yeah, I like how they're almost like action figures, except instead of bodies, it's just like, oh, this, like, stem that you can fill with bricks of candy. And yeah, I don't know, but, like, I just like them. And also, there's this amazing museum, well, it's called the Pez Visitor Center in Orange, Connecticut. That's, like, it's a museum and it's really cool. But the way my film and video work, I would say the way that those, like, toys and sort of plastic things influence it is that they appear in a lot of stuff I make pretty often, but I would say all of my, like, sculpture and painting type stuff, I mean, it's really, it's not very, it's not meant to be representational of any type of reality outside of my head, you know? Whereas my film and video stuff, there's a lot of just, like, very basic, everyday imagery. So that's, like, a big difference, I would say.
Oh, so, like, it's almost like, I don't know if you'd use this word, but it's almost like your blah 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 blah. Your non-video work, like the sculptural stuff you're doing, is more fantastical in a way, or just almost psychological, where it's just art.
I would say fantastical is, like, a pretty good way to put it. Yeah, like, it's weird. It's like, if I have a camera, like, I find portraiture very interesting, but if I'm, like, painting or making a sculpture, like, I don't want to, like, paint. Like, I don't know why. I just want to, like, if I'm painting or drawing, I want to paint some, like, fantasy thing of, like, I don't know, like, whatever it is. Like, it could just be, yeah, like, cartoon characters in some sort of violent, erotic situation, or I don't know. It's just I'm much more inclined to, like, yeah, it's like when you're doing that, you're creating the images, whereas, like, when you're making something with a camera, you're not so much. I mean, you're creating images, but you're also, like, using the world before you as this. Yeah, I mean, it's just, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I would have to, like, make animated movies to express in movies what I want to express in painting and sculpture, but I just, like, don't really find that interesting.
Right.
Me.
That's really interesting. Now, this might be like a I don't know, a boring fucking segment to get into, but one thing I have noticed about some of our listeners that have talked to us about some of our episodes is a lot of people are really interested in how the artists we talk to became who they were and their origins and their time in school or their times kind of developing the artists that they currently are. And I guess I'm kind of interested too, where you seem to be working in some really interesting but really unconventional areas artistically. Like, and I guess I'm wondering, during your time in school or at Mass Art, and probably in the early 2010s, were you on this same kind of wave, or were you in a more conventional place, or could you talk about how your art was, I guess, at that point in your journey, or how that led to where you are now, even?
Yeah, well, it's even at Mass Art, I don't feel like I think there's like maybe one thing I made when I was in school that I'm not like completely ashamed of. You know, like almost everything I made while I was in school, I would be like, that's like I don't like, honestly, yeah, I grew up going to Catholic schools. I grew up in Dorchester, the Boston neighborhood, going to Catholic schools. My family's from South Boston. And yeah, I mean, I never really clicked with my background at all. I mean, I grew up in this really sort of racist, misogynistic, homophobic, conservative environment that I absolutely hated. And I would say my queerness was, you know, always very apparent from an early age, but I mean, it was sort of bullied out of me for a pretty long period of time, to the point where, I mean, I lived as a heterosexual man until I was about 21. Which, you know, I'm like I'm a bisexual transgender woman. And then even at 21, you know, I'd say around 23 is when I came out as, like, I guess I came out as gay, which is not even, is also a very inaccurate description. And so, and I didn't even, and then I got married as gay, and so it's, you know, when you're in this sort of marriage and you were married under these sort of, I don't know, there's a lot of, and I would say this is a big theme in my work. Like, I don't feel like and this isn't, like, I don't necessarily think this goes for other people. I can only speak for myself. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't feel like I know who I am or what anything really even means in terms of, like, you know, I feel like I have so many layers of denial based on my upbringing that I'm still coming to terms with. So I would say like the more I can come to terms with things, the more, like, happy with my work I'll be. But it's weird. It's like probably until only a few years ago, I would say all the artwork I made, the only thing it really amounted to was me sort of educating myself on, you know, techniques and ways of, like, going about things. But yeah, I mean, you know, I was writing this thing the other day just about denial and delusions, and I have this sort of idea that, you know, you can look back on your past delusions, but, you know, when you can't really be aware of your present delusions because you're, like, trapped inside them. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I I always feel like, everything's sort of this existential crisis for me. So, like, I don't feel like I have a sort of, like, logical answer to the way my work evolved. It more had to do with, like, I just feel like a lot of my work in the past, until maybe 5 years ago, is representative of nothing more than, like, a false version of myself. But like I was saying a minute ago, I mean, who knows? Maybe in 2 years I'll consider my present self also false.
That's really interesting. So I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but would you say that using these kinds of experimental mediums are kind of allowing yourself not to be so constricted by conventional technique or conventional aesthetics helps you explore that kind of, or just kind of lean into that self-exploration through your work?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think of myself as, like, a disciplined artist. Like, I like the idea of doing, I don't want to say as many things as possible, but, like, seeing what I can do with different things and try to, I'm more interested in that than, like, making a great painting or a great movie. I mean, I'm kind of fine with this idea that everything I make, like, sucks to a certain extent. Because, and when I say suck, I think the way Brian says beautiful. It's like, it's like, I don't mean, like, suck like it's like worthless, but I mean it sucks by, say, like, certain institutional standards.
Yeah, I relate to that.
No, I like that description. That's a really so it's like, it's kind of, it's interesting too, because even with the Incontinence project, I feel like this is like, as far as that goes, and these, like, paintings of cartoon people and the Pez dispensers, and, like, it's almost like would you, I guess to clarify, like, would you consider yourself working in kind of like an absurdism way of thinking, or like because it kind of, I feel like there's a lot of a kind of lineage of people exploring horror and, like, these, like, psychological things or delusions and identity through absurdist aesthetics and ideas,
and childhood too.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's a lot of absurd thing. I have a lot of interest in absurdity. I would say that's just sort of, like, one aspect, because, like,
right.
in a lot of ways, like, my work seems really campy, but at the end of the day, a lot of it's actually really kind of, like, melodramatic and emotional and sentimental. And I would say, like, for it to be completely absurd would be to, like, mock the emotion and sentiment of it all, which I don't do that, because at the end of the day, it's, for me, it's almost more horrific than absurd. It's like, I want it to have, like, a sort of element of tragedy, like, like these because I use childhood imagery, but it's often been stripped. It's the images of it from a childhood thing, but, like, the childish nature of it has been, like, stripped, because it's usually there's some sort of profane act taking place or something.
Interesting.
Right. Oh, like, which would come into play with like sexual scenes or violence or even, like, with the Pez dispensers. In a way, you're kind of dismantling them.
Bathroom. There's a lot of, like, I'm really, like, to put it, like, bluntly, like, I'm really interested in, like, poo-poo and pee-pee. And And, like, that's another thing that I think of is, like, you know, there's a lot of, do you remember a few months ago, I think it was called Cuties or something? It was, like, a documentary about, like, you know, 9-year-old girls who did, like, dancing or whatever, and people were like, this is causing pedophilia. And, you know, I have a lot of, like, really, I don't necessarily like being around children because, like, I don't, like, I like being around children if I'm friends with their parents, you know?
Right, that makes sense.
But like, if you're just, like, some child and I don't know your parents, it's like, don't talk to me. I don't know how to talk to you or how fucking crazy, or how crazy your parents are, and are they gonna freak out that there's, like, some, like, you know, bag talking to you? You know, I mean, and so, yeah, but I feel real sympathy for children because I feel like adults in their sort of self-righteous quest to protect children, which, to be fair, I think protecting children is extremely important. I don't want to get that twisted, but
right.
But I do think people in their quest to protect children forget how much children are, like, beings with very complicated minds. And also, I mean, when I think about children, I try not to think about it from the perspective of an adult. I always try to think about children from the perspective of, like, a former child.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of it, like, I don't know, and, like, I just think, like, yeah, so that's why I kind of want to talk about childhood themes in, like, a very profane way, because, you know, I mean, by the time I was 12 years old, I was, like, a fucking pervert, you know? I mean, I was, like, I don't mean a pervert in, like, some sort of, like, criminal way, but I mean, I was, like, by the time I was 11 or 12, I was, like, talking in chat rooms to, like, what I thought were other 13-year-olds,
right.
but, like, probably, like, some 60-year-old priest,
right.
You know, that I was talking to. But, you know, I mean, kids are, and, yeah, this idea to just sort of neuter people under the age of 18 into these innocent creatures, to me, is just sort of, like, unrealistic bullshit. And I think, like, you know, you can totally talk about the complicated nature of being young without enabling abuse of, you know, minors. I mean, yeah, I feel like, yeah, and so that's why, I mean, I still think about my childhood constantly and my teenage years. And you know, I mean, like most people, I mean, the first 18 or however many years of your life sets the ground for everything. And those are complicated, confusing times. And, like, and that experience made a huge impact on me. And so I think about youth, like, a lot, you know, but I think about it in, like, a complicated way, you know, because I was, like, you know, a fucked up, confused, queer, closeted child who didn't know what the hell was going on, you know.
Yeah.
Right, and growing up in like what you said was a Catholic household in Boston, and we're in the early 2000s, right? Or late 90s, was, like, probably a very, like, extreme contrast to, you know, who you were or who you were becoming, you know what I mean? So that's, like, really interesting, I guess, to just think about, or kind of, like, you know, traumatic to even think about, because I don't know. I guess it's probably a common experience with most or all queer people to, or, you know, 99% of them to be growing up in such a way that absolutely does not reflect the life that they will one day want, and does kind of like, because I feel like I am often unlearning things that I didn't even know I believed, or like, talking about living in delusions that you can't even see yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, and the thing is, like, it's like that Philip Larkin poem about your parents fucking you up and how their parents fucked you up. It's like, I certainly, like, every time I think my parents are, like, I give my parents all sorts of shit, and, like, we're always, like, fighting, but at the same time, I mean, I know, like, I mean, it's not like, yeah, I mean, it's people, yeah, I mean, sometimes I think the best thing you can do, I mean, all of the most toxic things about myself, I was able to work on because someone who I love gave me shit about it. And they were like, oh, you're being an asshole. So, like, if my parents, who are, as you said, I mean, they are, I mean, they're both in their 60s, and, like, I'm interested as their only child in helping them, like, maybe unlearn things that were easier for me to unlearn because of the generation I grew up in. And it's like, yeah, I mean, yeah, people kick and scream when they try to better themselves, right? And then
truth, yeah.
And then maybe if they're lucky, one day they'll realize that, like, oh, if you just relax, it'll make it easier.
Yeah. I like also that talking about, I mean, I guess I don't actually know anything about your childhood or family, but I think it's interesting that talking about them as a conservative family, because I think, and growing up in Dorchester and Catholic, because I didn't grow up in Boston, but I'm white, and I grew up Catholic south of Boston, and I think it's interesting because I feel like a lot of people don't normally call that conservative because we're in fucking Boston.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's like this Irish, but like it truly is just its own version. Like, I always say, jokingly but seriously, that our hillbillies in the Northeast wear scally caps and have clover tattoos.
Yeah.
Instead of trucker hats.
It's like, when I say, like, my parents were, they mostly sent me to Catholic school, too, because they just didn't want me to go to Boston public school.
Right.
And you can read into that what you will. Yeah, I mean, my dad's almost 65. He's never registered to vote. So he just, like, doesn't. Yeah, my dad's just very much like, yeah, like a working stiff who's, like, usually in a grumpy mood. And,
yeah.
My mother, I would say my mother's a pretty liberal person, but I think she also, like, did want me to have, like, some religion in my life because she, like, thought that was the right thing. But, now she's, like, apparently an atheist now, I guess, but who the hell knows?
Right.
I mean, yeah, I mean, in the past, if something went wrong enough, she would, like, become religious, so maybe if something bad happens, she'll be religious again. I don't know. That's mean. I shouldn't talk that way. But, yeah, but, no, I mean, it is... Yeah, it's conservative, but it's not like, like Mitch McConnell conservative, like,
right.
But it's not like, it's not the way, like, people who fight on Facebook about, like, the morality of, like, neoliberalism, but it's like, it's still conservative to me,
right. No, I agree. I think it's important because, like, I think there's a lot of really important regional distinctions to make when we're talking about social issues and politics and stuff. But I think it's like as big of a queer community as there is in Boston. I think it's definitely a unique thing, to me at least, in this very moment, to, you know, think about the, you know, queerness in terms of like Irish Catholic Boston.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to make you feel like you're under a fucking microscope or something with your your identity and childhood and shit. But I do think it's a really.
I mean, it
cool
is.
thing.
I think about that a lot. You know, I mean, yeah. I grew up like basically on the route of the fucking St. Patrick's Day parade.
Yeah, I believe it. Shit.
Yeah, I mean, you know. I mean, at least I got to see like a hairy-legged big bird and like, I don't know. I would know. They would always have like very cheap costumes.
Right. You know what's funny is like out of all of I've lived in Massachusetts my entire life, and I've never been to the St. Patrick's Day parade in Boston.
Me neither.
Like, I just never went. I used to have a lot of friends that would go and get drunk at the parade and stuff, but I never went.
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly, like, better things you could do with it. Like,
that's true.
I don't know. Like, having someone beat you with a baseball bat. That would be more constructive. No, they're not that bad. I mean, they're pretty bad, but they're a little better than getting beat with a baseball bat, I guess. Not much. But, yeah. No, I mean, I don't know. I just find them traumatic at this point.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Oh, wow.
Oh, this is kind of out of the blue, but I have to ask the obvious question. Why is it called the Incontinence Project?
I don't know. I think I was just like, it was just like a high idea. I used to, I like the, well, I don't know. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I mean, at various points in my life, I've like been pretty incontinent. I mean, I'm what they call California sober.
Right.
Now. Well, I took mushrooms last night, so I guess I'm a little less than California sober. But I'm not drinking right now. But I used to, like, drink excessively and do lots of, like, cocaine and things like that. And, yeah, I mean, you just sort of, like, shit yourself. And yeah, you just become a very leaky. You just become very leaky when you're that way. When you're always, yeah, you just sort of piss and shit yourself. And, and so, yeah, I was. So there's that. And then also, I just like, the thing about incontinence is, I mean, every human enters the world incontinent. And, I mean, unless you die very abruptly.
Oh, I think we might have,
You know, so, I mean, incontinence is, but, yeah.
Are we losing connection?
Hello?
Oh, hey, I think we might have lost connection for a hot second there. Can you hear us? Hello?
Hello?
Hey, can you hear me? Hello?
Uh-oh.
Mic check, 1 2 1 2.
I can hear you.
Oh, okay, cool. Oh, okay.
Hi.
All right, we're back.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we just lost connection for a second there. Ah, shit. Did it happen again? Yo.
Uh-oh.
Yay.
Okay. Yes? No?
Cool.
Shit.
Hi.
Okay. Can you? We can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay, dope.
Perfect.
Hell yeah.
I can hear you.
Okay, so
We might have.
But yeah, I don't know. I think, like, it's like I was saying earlier.
call back again? See if that works.
Hey, we might try disconnecting and then calling you back to see if that improves the connection a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna just do it. Fuck it. Alright, I'm gonna call.
Fuck.
It's okay. It's just a little bit of an intermission. Hang with us there, audience.
I was really interested in that point, too.
That was a good point, yeah.
You know how we were talking about how we're gonna upgrade our recording setup soon?
This is episode 10 right here. Hey, can you hear me? Sorry, I think I got a little bit of a choppy connection there.
Hi.
Hey, Hey.
Hi.
Oh, fuck, man.
Should I go to...
Shit. Maybe you could, pull over for a second somewhere safe to see if we can stabilize the connection.
Yeah.
Hello?
Hi.
Hey, there we go.
Sorry.
Okay, it's a little bit better now.
All right, cool.
Perfect. Yeah, we were really interested in your point.
Oh, no, I was just saying incontinence, I have everyone is incontinent when they are born, and then most people, when they die, are incontinent. And even if you're not incontinent at the end of your life, you probably piss or shit yourself when you die. And just this, I just think a lot of culture is based around sort of distancing the human experience from the sort of base sort of experiences, and I just feel like incontinence is a good metaphor for that.
Yeah, like a common denominator.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Goddamn.
That wasn't the answer I was expecting, but I love that.
No, that's a good answer.
Yeah, I mean, there's other, me and Tyler have talked about it a lot, but yeah, I don't know. Also, it's funny.
That's a good,
Yeah,
that's a good point, too.
yeah, I think I do like the title because it brings such a chaotic energy just straight up to the front page. It's just laid out. This is as beautiful and as interesting and as poignant as this can be, it's going to be chaotic.
Yeah, and it's also very sensitive. I mean, I remember there's this commercial that I really like where it's this service that sends you adult incontinence products in unmarked boxes to your house. And then in the commercial, there's all these footage of people going up to the counter with their Depends undergarments with a look of shame, and just and I feel yes, certain people, it's just this very shamey thing. But to me, I just think it's hilarious. Of course, yeah, I mean, on the one hand, people get upset about a loss of bodily function. On the other hand, I would say to be disgusted by a loss of bodily function is actually kind of ableist. So maybe normalizing people pissing and shitting themselves isn't necessarily that bad. I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah, I guess it does make sense. I was wondering if there was a kind of a theme of disability preparing for this interview.
Oh, well, I'm not I'm disabled in the disabled, mentally ill sort of I'm autistic. I'm mentally ill. I mean, I've had a few breakdowns. I have obsessive compulsive disorder and, different personality, this or that, supposed, and major depressive disorder, and I'm on all sorts of medications, and I have
the works.
Yeah, and I have like a history of substance abuse.
Yeah.
So there's definitely, and I have Tourette syndrome too.
Right.
But so there's definitely like, I'm interested in not only my own disability, but just disability as like a disenfranchised state of being, and also just like something that like, disabled people aren't useful to capitalism. And yet they, there's this devaluation of disabled lives under capitalism, which I'm like very like interested in. I mean, there's obviously a devaluation of all sorts of lives under capitalism.
No, that's true though, because the less easily you fit into a pre-assigned mold, the less easily you can fit into the mold that will make someone else money.
Exactly.
Yeah. Huh.
Motherfucker, I just had a fucking question in my head, and I was like, I'm gonna ask it right now, and then it just walked right out of my head. It just said, "Fuck you, you cannot ask that right now." and now I'm just some dumb asshole without a question. Oh no, I remember what it was. You know what? Something I wanted to ask you in the beginning, but we went a more interesting route. Was like, I read in your feature in the Compass, you guys talked about, and you talked about a little bit, how the original intention for the Incontinence project or these was to be a band in a sense. And I was wondering if you, and I know that there was like a lot of, you guys were limited by the pandemic, obviously, just like so many other things in the world. But like, I was wondering if you, now experiencing what you have experienced since the beginning of this project, and after you have made all this art and collaborated with this person and done all this stuff, knowing what you know now, if you could make it a band, do you think you still would? And do you think that would change the kind of meaning or direction of the project? Like, do you think that it's better as not a band?
I think, I do in a lot of ways think of it as a band, just not in the most like obvious sense, but like we're definitely a musical project. But yeah, there's always going to be either a visual or like a tactile element to the work we're making, but I do consider it a band in that we're doing things that like a band would do, like, we're making music and we're recording music, and we did like the Boston Hassle live streaming series.
The Plague series, right?
Yeah, and so we are doing band stuff, but we're also releasing media so that it's, it's kind of like a band slash, an art project. Yeah.
That's really cool. Kind of pushing the definition of that term.
Yeah, hopefully. So, but if someone was like, hey, we're having a show, you guys want to play, we would, and we would, definitely have visual elements, but we're hopefully a versatile sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm also interested. Could you talk a little bit about the actual format of the group? Like, is it, are you singing and playing the theremin? Like, how are you projecting? Like, how are the visuals incorporated, I guess, in a technical sense? Like, do you guys have a kind of system as to how you guys are setting up the shows?
each track and each performance has been quite different. Like, one of the videos we made was like a 20-minute long track that had no real vocals at all. And then there are others that have me singing. But usually I play the theremin, and then I also play some kind of like toy instruments. Like, I have a melodica, and then I have this plastic pan flute. And yeah, I mean, we'd also play like non-instruments, like, and just make noise with like popping balloons or like shooting cap guns or whatever. And yeah, so, and then Tyler usually plays the synthesizer, and yeah, Pete has a program that I remember learning when I was in school called Isadora, which I think was originally designed for like DJs to add live visual mixes during their sets. So what that project enables you to do is have multiple video and audio tracks and mix them live. And we use a lot of like green screen stuff, and so I mean, we just kind of play it by ear.
Right, so I'm sure a lot of it, probably because you're playing in these, every venue and DIY space and things, shit, like, it's all different, I'm sure, so it's probably totally different.
Played in any actual venues yet. When we did the Plague series, we did that in our studio.
Oh, so you remotely streamed through? Okay,
Yeah.
that makes way more sense, because I always think I watched some parts of it, and I was imagining it as if you were in like Dorchester Art Project, like in their venue.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. No, it's really cool. Huh?
Yeah, that was the Boston. I guess the Boston Hassle. This happened before I got involved, but I guess the Boston Hassle and the Dorchester Art Project aren't affiliated anymore.
Yeah, yes, I did hear about that.
That only happened like in the last year or so, I believe.
Right. Oh, so is it? So are you? And which is it that you write for? Do you write for the Compass or Boston Hassle?
I write for the Boston. So the Boston Compass is like a print paper, I believe.
Right.
Yes, that's
and
through
Boston Hassle is
I conflate.
online. So they used to be kind of like siblings, but I think the Compass is still affiliated with Dorchester Art Project and Brain Arts, and then the Boston Hassle went in a separate direction.
Right. I accidentally just melted them all together in my brain during this conversation.
Until very recently they were.
Right.
Yeah. I'm a tenant at Dorchester Art Project, and that happened within the last year that I started going there, and it was right before I started renting, I think, that they weren't anymore, because both Brian and I have done the black market events for a couple years now, so I didn't realize until I talked to them a little bit before I started renting that they had split. But
yeah, I actually grew up on Dorchester Ave, but like about I would say about 2 miles from Dorchester Art Project.
oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, heading like toward downtown Boston, not toward like Ashmont.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So we probably drove by your ancestral home.
Oh yeah.
Your childhood home many times, actually.
Do you know the intersection where Dorchester Ave and Columbia Road intersect?
Is that where the gas station is, and you can go through to Southie?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I know that intersection.
That's the neighborhood I grew up in.
No shit. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. So so we filmed that in our studio, and we just used like a green screen, and then for that particular thing, we did the video. I know that it's supposed to be like, oh, it's a live stream, but it wasn't live at all. We recorded it the night before, and so we actually did we put the video and audio stuff on the green screen after we did the performance. But
okay. Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, because the visuals were really interesting of that performance. Like, it was really well produced.
Oh, thanks. But for future live things, we are going to be doing more live mixes of video and have that composed live in addition to the music.
That's really cool. That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited
for the new world.
Yeah, hopefully later this year.
I know. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, were you involved? Did you in any part of like the DIY Boston scene, like before the pandemic and stuff? Like, did you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been, an artist in Boston for my entire adult life. I had a studio right near Sullivan Square where I lived for about 7 years in the Sullivan Square area of Somerville. And, I shared a studio with like 8 other people. It was like a huge space. And I would regularly put on shows there. And then, I've been adjacent to everything. It wasn't until recently with the hassle that I got more involved with, I guess you could say, a sort of scene at large. I would say it's only recently, only in the last few years that Boston, that the sort of main DIY people in Boston have. Yeah, it's just, it's like anything else. It's usually just very sort of like straight guy dominated, and usually it's all. Doesn't mean they're not well-meaning people and all, but they just, it's just you can be involved, but you just. I've always been more sort of interested in making this, not necessarily joining a scene as much as broadening a scene to be better at accommodating people.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Right, making things more inclusive and more interesting and adding some dimension to what otherwise might be just a kind of echo chambery, flat kind of.
Yeah, validation feels good, but it only goes so far if I just think I don't think people. I don't like the idea of people needing to bend, like creative people needing to bend over backwards to for people to. Yeah, I just think that's just not. that's not, I mean, I feel like there was times in my life when I was younger, not that I'm, like, that old. I mean, I'm, like, old enough to, like, say when I was younger, I guess. But, you know, it's like, yeah, I mean, there were definitely times where I was like, oh, no, I, like, need to be this, like, famous person or something. But, like, I don't know, the older I get, the more I don't even like the idea of being any type of, like, figure or public person ever. But I just, like, actually really love, like, doing the work that I do.
Right, like the actual art. That can be something that I feel like a lot of people get caught up on, where they kind of forget, like, what it actually feels like to get your hands dirty and to do shit and to, like, actually experience the art you're making versus trying to sell it or promote it or network it or be a public figure.
I think we had a whole episode that we talked about that, where, like, the promotion and the kind of pitching your work to other people or trying to climb up the ranks in your local scene, or even bigger than that, just in the world at large, that kind of drive for fame and drive for attention is an entirely different skill set and hobby than the actual art making.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of, I mean, I don't mean to, like, talk shit, but I'm going to.
Yeah, do it.
I know so many people who, I mean, like, their entire, like, creative practice is, like, once a year they'll, like, take, like, a Hershey Kiss turd that they'll then, like, whore around to everybody. And, you know, and it's like, well, you know, at the end of the day, like, it's just, like, if you make a big enough deal out of anything, people, I mean, you could, like, clip your fucking toenail, and if you promote it hard enough, like, sure, yeah, and that's all well and good, but, like, I don't know, it's like, yeah, I don't know, I feel like another problem is, like, I feel it's not even about, I feel like a lot of people aren't very confident in their own tastes, so unless they see something being promoted by, like, whoever, they're going to, like, ignore something that they might actually find, like, interesting, you know?
That's true. Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm, now that I'm writing artist features for the Hassle, I'm trying to, like, specifically get in touch with people who, like, with absolutely no concern of their status.
Sometimes you find, actually most of the time, you find the rawest work from those people because they're not thinking about the audience or not kind of preemptively meeting that judgment. Like, they're just making what they're making.
Yeah, I agree.
What a fucking world. Yeah, that's like, that, what was I about to say? Shit.
Can I add one more thing before you?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna
I lost
say,
my shit anyway.
That's okay. You'll think of it. But I was just gonna say something else too, that, like, in my own art practice, the way that I try and think about that, because, I mean, part of how I make money sometimes is post things on Instagram and try and sell through my Instagram shop or something. And I got, especially last summer when I had a ton of time to think about it, and people had PUA money, and it was actually turning a little bit of, I wasn't really making a profit, but, you know, I was getting a little bit of money on my Venmo sometimes. I got really caught up in that, the idea of promoting and making work that people would buy. And I really had to remind myself, and I do now, to kind of, I don't want to call it a meditative practice, but remember what I'm working on and, like, the themes that I'm trying to work through and what I'm actually trying to accomplish is something that only I can do, because it's themes I've been working on my whole life and I'll be continuing to develop throughout my art. Whether I stick with the same concepts or not is a different story, but there's one pathway that I'm working down, and if I start appealing to an audience or making art for Instagram, I'm completely fucking that whole thing. And I think for me that's been a really important motivator, and to not get lost in the sauce, you know?
Yeah, I've definitely fucked that up, where I've, like, found myself, like, trying to make something, like, making art, like, oh, and, like, people would probably really love it if I did it like this, or fucking included this stupid shit. Yeah. And then I make some bullshit Frankenstein dumb shit that I think people are gonna like, and then nobody even fucking wants it, because it's not even authentic or interesting, and it's just clearly me And I think what you said too, Frankie, is really interesting, and people not being confident enough in their own taste. Because I can think back to a lot of times, like in my teenage years, where I'd like wear a T-shirt from a company or something that I thought would like make me more interesting or something, where I didn't even support these fucking brand. Like I don't know, just like stupid shit like that, where you like comb your fucking hair in a dumbass way that you think will make people like you or something, but it's absolutely not. And there's like an adult art version of that where you won't buy art from somebody that isn't, I don't know. I'm not saying like me or any of us, but like, you know, there's kind of like I wonder how much of it is like, because we see it as being like people with credibility that they don't deserve, but I wonder how much of it too is like art consumers really not having like that kind like confidence. Like in like actually being like, well, this doesn't need to be promoted by SOA for me to think it's cool, or like
I mean, or even have any academic ties, or even I don't know. It's like literally one of my favorite paintings that I own. I bought from this guy in Harvard Square. And it was just like, it's a painting of like a koala bear in a tree that he made. You could tell it was made with like really cheap acrylic, kind of like almost like you know, like kids tempera paint or something. But and he just told me this like long story, and it was so crazy. He's like, I was like, how much is this? He's like, well, how much do you want? I'm like, I'll give you 40 for it. And he goes, I'll take 35. And I was just like, you're a fucking lunatic. And then I was like, I said to him, I'm like, can you sign the back? And he wrote, Dennis Artist. And he was just like sitting like, he definitely was, I guess what you would call an outsider artist, in the sense that he was just like some eccentric guy who had no real vocabulary for discussing art critically. He was literally just like, all he gave a shit about was like, oh, I like was watching this show on Discovery and like I loved the koala. And like to me, like, or like even art by children, or I mean, I used to most of my adult life I've made my living working in human services, and I like have a lot of art from people who I worked with, you know, whether it's like people with all sorts of diagnoses that, you know, sort of have them labeled sort of legally incompetent, you know, but I think art, I mean, I don't know. I mean, some of my favorite, I mean, you could literally like find like a petrified piece of like feces at the beach, and like if you want to like hang it on your windowsill, I don't see why you shouldn't.
I agree with that. That's a good take.
A petrified piece of feces from the beach seems like it would actually be kind of interesting. Like if it was like a rock that was like 1,000,000 years old or something.
Yeah.
I would definitely do that.
Just like being silly, you know, but...
No, I totally get it. I think it's definitely important to just actually enjoy what you enjoy, whether it's fucking from Dennis Artist or if it's from this like white cube gallery.
That's the whole fucking point, right?
I like all sorts of, you know, like stuff like that too.
Me too, yeah.
Like I like all sorts of very sort of minimal, you know, whatever, but I also just like, I don't know, like I like something that just seems like, I don't know, like, like I like something like that gives me the same sensation as like, say you're like shopping and you hear like a 4-year-old like scream out the F word or something. You know, it's like that sensation. sensation. Like, I really get a thrill out of things like that. Like, this sort of it's like impropriety, but it's not, like, harmful. It's just sort of like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like seeing, like, a drunk person, like, taking a piss in public. It's like, oh, this is very indecent, but it's also, like, funny.
Yeah, just the rawness of an actual moment in life that isn't polished or plastic.
Yeah, it's like anything. It's like one time when I worked at AC Moore, my boss was yelling at me. And in the middle of him yelling at me, he farted. And I was literally just like, you cannot keep yelling at me. Like, you ruined the seriousness of it. You know? It's like, no matter what you say now, it won't matter. Because you farted, you know? And, yeah. So I would like art. I like things that are like that fart, you know?
Yeah.
Wow.
Except I don't want them to smell like it.
Right, yeah. No, I totally agree.
That's a hell of an artist statement right there. That's perfect.
I think that, honestly, like, this is the first time that I've talked to you, and I feel like I feel at home with your view on art.
Yeah.
I think this has been
good. No, you are both very pleasant to talk to.
Thank you.
Oh,
yeah,
thank
this
you.
has been an absolutely, like, really interesting and beautiful vision into your world, into what it is that you do.
Oh, well, I'm glad. I'm having a fun time.
Yeah, holy shit, man. I don't know.
I want to keep going, but we're at over an hour and a half now. Yeah.
This is how every one of our episodes go so far when we have a guest, where it's just like we like do have like an unspecial, like a informal cap, but it's just like at the end it's always just like, man, like I wish we could just keep hanging.
Yeah.
Because this is like, I don't know if you identify with this, but one thing that we talk about pretty much every single episode is the feeling of being outside of a music venue, smoking a cigarette and talking to a random person about the most interesting things in the world.
Well,
That's our...
I'm sure when the world's more back to normal, we can all get a drink or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we would totally hang out. That sounds fucking amazing. Yeah, and also, too, we definitely... We're going to be making more of this, so maybe we'll have you back on to come hang out.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, dude.
This is better than the Joe Rogan experience.
Thank you. Yeah, hopefully, maybe we'll get to that level one day where we can rival the. Yeah, holy shit.
Dude, if Joe Rogan asked me to be on the show, as much as I hate that motherfucker, I would absolutely do it.
Yeah, you'd probably have to.
Just to, like...
I would spray him with mace. Just, like, abruptly.
I would love to see that clip. I would watch that
God.
episode.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Do you know the video? It was a video outside of a show where he got in a fight with Lydia Lunch in, like, the early 2000s or something. And they were just fucking swearing at each other about something. I think he, like, checked out one of her friends or something.
It's
she
like a
reamed
Nokia
him.
phone video.
It's one of my favorite pieces of content on the entire internet.
Yeah.
That's
YouTube gem.
fun.
Yeah, I love her.
Wow.
Yeah, I like her.
Yeah, she has some interesting stuff. So, Frankie, do you think before we sign off, do you think you could tell the listeners, like, where they can check out your stuff or see some upcoming video work or anything like that?
Yeah, so
And we can also include links and stuff in the description of the post as well. If you want to send us along some things.
Well, I got me one of them link trees.
Ooh.
Oh, awesome.
So, yeah, I like those because when those first came out, I was like, what is this? And then I thought it was like a website, but then it turns out it's just all your websites.
Yeah.
So, I'm Linktree/real Real Slim Frankie. Because when I was a teenager, that's when Real Slim Shady came out. So I've just been using that as a username since I was like 12. So the link tree, the link tree contains my Vimeo page, and also my Instagram is also Real Slim Frankie, and that has a lot of my art on it. I used to have a website, but like we were saying earlier, one day I was just like, fuck having a website.
Me too.
Yeah.
You know, I was just, it's just like, I have all these friends who went to grad school, and they were like, one of the things you have to do in grad school is get a website, and I'm just like, fuck, what, someone's not going to buy my art because I don't have a website? Fuck you, you know, so, it's like, I don't need a website. Yeah.
Linktree, that's all you need, really.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Also, just random question, too. Is the Incontinence Project the name of the band? Did I miss something? Okay, cool. Got it. All right, cool. I didn't know if it was a series by the band or if that was the band, but I understand now.
No, that is the band.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you fucking so much. This has been a really amazing interview.
Yeah.
This has been a great conversation.
It was wonderful chatting.
Yeah, hell yeah. And we're actually probably going to just release this like immediately, like this Friday.
Yeah.
So we'll send you. There's not much of a turnaround time with our episodes.
Is that this week or is it next week?
Wait. Oh, you know what? This might be an off week, but it'll be out. It'll be out super very soon.
Yeah.
And we'll 100% send it along to you.
Tag you.
Wonderful. Well, I look forward to it.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your night. Maybe we'll see you when the apocalypse ends, and if not, we'll have to have you back on here.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, you both have a great night.
All right. You too.
too.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. I don't know how to hang that up. It's fucking up.
Oh, no. Okay. There we go.
There we go. Well, shit. That was good. We're still recording. That was a good episode. This is actually the second episode in a row that is longer than an hour and 40 minutes.
Amazing.
So
there we go.
we're I'm starting to realize that podcasting long periods of time is like a conversation, like fucking cross country race.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that we're accidentally improving.
I think that's true.
Yeah, what if we end up with like 3-hour episodes at some point?
Fuck it, who cares?
Fuck this shit.
Let's
I gotta shut this fucking thing off. All right, thank you guys. This has been the Boston Art Podcast with our first guest that's actually from Boston.
That's actually true.
All right, see you guys.
Bye.
Bye.